The hallway was loud with the sound of slamming lockers, laughter, and the rush of students between classes. But then everything fell silent when a sharp crash echoed across the corridor. A young black girl, Maya Johnson, was slammed hard against a locker by a boy twice her size, his sneer dripping with arrogance and hate. The air grew heavy. Students froze, some shocked, some whispering, others pretending not to notice. The boy leaned close and hissed cruel words about her skin, about how she didn't belong, about how no one would ever stand up for her. He smirked, thinking he had just proven his power. But what he didn't know was that Maya was not as alone as he believed. Her father was not just any man. He was a decorated U.S. Army colonel, a man who had fought battles across the globe, who commanded respect from generals and soldiers alike. At that very moment, fate was preparing to reveal that truth. What seemed like just another ugly hallway bullying incident was about to turn into a lesson this boy, and everyone else, watching, would never forget. Because sometimes, life has a way of flipping the balance of power in a single instant. And for Maya, that moment was now. The cruel laughter that followed the shove would soon vanish, replaced by fear, shock, and awe. This was no ordinary girl, and the boy who thought himself strong was about to realize he had made the biggest mistake of his life. Maya Johnson was the kind of girl who kept to herself at school, smart, focused, and quiet. She didn't like conflict, preferring her books and her dreams of becoming a lawyer one day. But bullies don't care about dreams. One afternoon, as she walked down the crowded school hallway, a boy named Dylan, bigger, older, and notorious for picking on those weaker than him, decided to make Maya his target. Fueled by ignorance and the need to look tough in front of his friends, he shoved her hard against a locker, the metal clanging so loud the hallway went silent. His words were venomous, his tone filled with hate as he mocked her race, calling her names that stung deep, words meant to break her spirit. Students nearby watched in frozen silence, some lowering their heads, too scared to step in, others smirking as if entertained. Maya's books scattered to the ground, her pride bruised, but her eyes burned with silent strength. What Dylan didn't know, what none of the students knew, was that Maya's father, Colonel Marcus Johnson, had just returned from a deployment overseas. A man known in the Army for his leadership, courage, and unshakable presence, he was feared by enemies abroad and respected by soldiers at home. Fate had aligned the timing. Colonel Johnson had come to pick Maya up early that day. As Dylan sneered down at her, a deep voice cut through the silence. "Is there a problem here?" The crowd parted like water, and there stood Colonel Johnson, broad-shouldered in his crisp uniform, eyes locked on the bully with a glare that could pierce steel. Dylan's face drained of color. The colonel stepped forward, helping Maya up gently before turning his full attention to the boy. "You think you're strong because you push around someone smaller?" His voice was calm, almost too calm. Dylan stammered, trying to speak, but the colonel's tone grew sharper. "Strength isn't in your fists or your insults. Strength is in protecting those who can't protect themselves." The principal and teachers arrived just in time to see the scene, their jaws tight as they took in what had happened. Maya's father didn't yell, didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His presence alone was enough to break Dylan down. But just when the moment seemed over, a twist came. Dylan's father, known for his arrogance in town, stormed into the school office later that day, demanding that Maya's father be reprimanded for embarrassing his son. He threatened lawsuits, shouted about his family's reputation, and tried to paint Dylan as the victim. But the colonel was ready. He pulled out a folder, filled with medals, citations, and commendations, and placed it calmly on the desk. "I've faced men who thought they could intimidate me," he said, his voice cold and steady. "Your threats mean nothing." The school board, already aware of Dylan's long history of bullying, sided with Colonel Johnson. Dylan was suspended, his father's protests ignored. The community, hearing of the incident, began to rally around Maya. The same students who had been silent in the hallway now came forward, ashamed of their inaction, inspired by her courage. Maya herself transformed in that moment, no longer just the quiet girl with dreams, but a symbol of resilience and dignity. She spoke at an assembly later that week, her voice trembling at first, then growing stronger. "I didn't ask to be pushed. I didn't ask for hate," she told her classmates. "But I learned that silence only helps the bully. My father showed me that true strength is standing tall when others want to push you down. The gym erupted in applause, many students in tears. Even some who had laughed during the bullying stepped forward afterward to apologize. Dylan never looked at Maya again. His arrogance was shattered, replaced by the weight of shame. And Maya's father? He became a local legend, not just for his military service, but for being the father who stood up for his daughter when it mattered most. That day became more than a story of bullying. It became a lesson of justice, courage, and the undeniable truth that hate never wins. For every shove meant to break her, Maya stood taller. For every cruel word, she answered with dignity. And for every bully who thought they could silence her, she proved that she had a voice louder than any insult. Her father's shadow was not just behind her, it was beside her, a constant reminder that she came from strength, from sacrifice, and from a legacy no one could tarnish.